Thanks for popping in for another unfilled episode of Diesel's Garage. As you guys probably know, if you've followed this channel at all, I'm not Diesel, but I am part of his crew. My name is Michael, and I'm his brother-in-law from Wichita, Kansas. And as you can probably tell, I stutter. No, it isn't the computer, it isn't your internet connection, it's me. So anyway, that just adds some excitement to the videos. But anyway, I'm going to pop in from time to time and show you some of the projects I have. I've got a couple old cars that I'll be fiddling on from time to time. Hopefully they'll be educational and maybe show you a few things, and at least a little entertaining for you. So I'm going to pop the camera off the stand here, and I'm going to show you the cars for just a second so you can kind of see what I have. Okay, first up I have a 1963 Chevy 2 Nova Super Sport. It is a Pro Street car. You'll have to excuse the cramped quarters in here. Unfortunately, I've got a lot of things without enough space to have them in. Secondly, I have a 1974 HURST OLDS. Kind of a fun car that you don't see all the time. I wanted to do some things on it too over the course of time here, so keep checking in for the videos. Our video today is going to be, I'm going to be changing out the intake on my 63 Chevy 2. Bought the car out of Phoenix, Arizona. It has a 434 cubic inch Dart small block in it. I was told the car dynoed, or the engine, I should say, dynoed out at around 630 horse, about 500 foot-pounds of torque, which are pretty impressive for about a 2,600 pound car. My problem is I bought the car to be kind of a street car. The guy that built the car, although he did a lot of very cool things, he did a very good job on the car, it's not very streetable. The car had a 950 CFM quick fuel carb on it, which was, for this car, is way too big. I found out like 3 sets of spark plugs in a very short time, and I thought, okay, maybe I can just dial it in, get it so it isn't so rich. But I decided to try a 750 Pro Form carb instead. Now, both of these carbs are your standard Holley 4150 double pumper carbs. The 750 helped, but it was still just super rich at idle. Haven't had a whole bunch of time to fiddle on it, but my next door neighbor came over the other evening, who happens to be an old drag racer, and he looks at me and goes, "Aren't you trying to drive this car on the street?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, part of your problem is your intake," which I should have thought of that, but I've been just so focused on the carb that I haven't thought about anything else, just kind of tunnel vision, so to speak. And he's right. It has an Edelbrock Victor style intake on it, which those things are set up for about 3,500 RPM on out. On the street, I won't see 3,500 RPM. Very seldom. So the thing I chose to do is to order a new intake for it. So I got on my favorite site online, Jake's Performance, and ordered a Edelbrock RPM air gap intake. Those are going to be more from about the 1,500 RPM range to about 5,000-6,000 RPMs, which is, for on the street, that's going to be perfect. I had that ordered. It is not here so far, but I thought I would start today by taking the old intake off, and so when the intake shows up, I can just go ahead and install it. So I'm going to kind of take you through the steps that I follow to take the intake off. You know, I understand there's going to be people out there going, "That's not how I would do it," and that's fine. There's a lot of paths that you can take to all end up in the same spot. I might do things differently than what some people do. I'm no expert. I don't do this every day. It's been a long time since I was a mechanic. I don't think a whole lot has changed. But anyway, follow me along and I'll take you through the steps. Okay, the first step in the process is I'm going to drain the antifreeze out of the radiator. There is going to be some antifreeze, of course, left in the intake as I pull it off, but if it's out of the radiator, then I won't have to play with all of that. How I'm going to do that is there is a petcock. This has a Be Cool aluminum radiator. If you can see it, but right down in this corner, down here, there is a petcock. Kind of hard to see on the camera, but I'm going to open it up process, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. Okay guys, I have the antifreeze draining as we speak. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and unhook some of the stuff that's on the intake. The carb is already all unhooked, so all I have to do is just to lift it off. I have some fittings to take off. I need to pull off the upper radiator hose, some of those things. None of this is very hard or very time consuming. You just have to be kind of careful that you don't spill fuel, don't spill antifreeze all over everything. Get a whole lot of antifreeze into the engine. That's always a problem. If I do, you'll just have to change oil prior to starting it up. So anyhow, this has very fancy hose clamps on it. It's a covered stainless radiator hose with these round fancy chrome caps. But what's neat with these is you can't see it, but under here is a screw, which is a standard radiator style clamp. So I'm going to grab a screwdriver, or if I can. Yeah, I mean, I'd be able to fit a socket on there, so I'm going to grab a flat blade and pull this thing off. Okay guys, I'm back. I got the hose off. It fought me some, but it finally came off. Like I said before, I have everything on the carb unhooked, so I'm just going to go ahead and pull it off so it's off of here. So I'm not blocking any pressure. I had a spacer on here, so I'm going to go ahead and pull the spacer and the gasket off of it also. Kind of get some assembled things off here. Next thing I want to do is I have a dispenser up here on the front that I've got the little line tied onto my fuel rail, so I'm going to cut it off. I'm going to cut the fuel rail just off to the side here, and find a small wrench and unhook the lead going to the dispenser. I'm going to set my phone cables and TV cable. This has a 700R4 in it that has a TV cable that goes into the ignition. All of that's unhooked. So next I'm going to grab a small wrench here, or probably just a pair of channel locks, and take off this nut and pull this lead off here, set it off to the side. I'm going to unhook my ignition coil cable here off the distributor's going to be coming off, and I actually have new spark plug wires coming also. I ordered a set of MSD. Whoever these cables, I've unhooked a couple of them, pulled fans off. They didn't have them hooked on all that. So I decided I'm just going to order a set of MSDs that are assembled, put it on here, and then I'll be done. Okay, so it's unhooked. Okay. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just pull off all the leads off the distributor and just pull all the cables off completely. Like I said, I have new ones coming. Something kind of threw me for a loop on this car too. This has what's called a 4-7 swap. Apparently there was a race team that figured out that if you swap cylinders 4 and 7, there's less heat build up. It gives you a little bit better balanced engine as far as ignition. I first checked this car. I was going to set the timing, and I went to check all the plug leads just to be sure that they were in the places that they should be. And I found 4 and 7 were just switched. I said, okay, that's odd. So I changed them to the proper Chevrolet firing order. Things started backfiring on me. Like, okay, what happened? So I got online, I did a little bit of research, come to find out there is such a thing as a 4-7 swap. It takes a different camshaft. I contacted the guy who purchased the car from me, said, yep, it has a 4-7 swap. So that kind of solved that issue. So tell you what, I'm going to go ahead and finish pulling these off, and then I'll be back. Okay, and we're back. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put the car up on top dead center. Before I pull out the distributor, I'd like to be sure that's up on top dead cylinder on the first cylinder, so that when I reassemble it, I can just drop the distributor in. Everyone's happy. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pop the cap off of the distributor, and this has a MS&D probe billet on it. Works fantastic. It's kind of old school. It's still a distributor. It's not as fancy as your new LS3s and LS engines as a whole, but they do a very good job. So I'm going to pull off the cap, and then we shall continue. Very inside there. That's interesting. For those of you that have never played with these, they're very easy to take off and on. There's a screw here on the side, and you just turn these, and it pulls the cap off. Now, I just found there's a whole bunch of rust in the cap on mine, which is kind of disturbing. So after I have it pulled off, I may have to clean it all up. So anyway, now we're going to try to put the car up on top dead center, and I'm going to show you how we do that. Okay, on the flywheel, and if I can find my flashlight, I will show you. On the flywheel, there are timing marks on it, and it'll show you where you're at top dead center. It'll show you your different, like 10 degrees, 20 degrees, and so on. So the first thing I'm going to do is to get it to where my flywheel, or my, actually it's the harmonic balancer, is up on top dead center. So I'm going to try to set the camera down here, and I will do that. And I'll be back. Okay, well, it is up on top dead center, as you can see. The timing mark, or the timing pointer, is setting on the 0. I think you can see it okay up there. And I should probably tell you how I turn it up on top dead center. To make the engine easier to turn, I pulled out the spark plugs out of it, which I'm going to anyway. I stuck a long half-inch ratchet on it. This one takes like a 9/16 or 5/8 socket. And I just turned the engine until I was up on top dead center. Now, as far as the spark plugs, I was going to show you those here for just a second. This is a sign of a very rich engine. The spark plugs are very black, they're sooty. A couple of them are kind of still has some of the raw feel on them, but they're basically all just a black sooty color, which is a sure sign of being too rich. So let me put the camera back on the stand here and we will continue on. Okay, now I've got the engine up on top dead center. I want to just test it to be sure it's there. I'm going to take a small screwdriver here. I don't know if you can see it. There it is. I'm going to stick it in the hole of the first spark plug and see if I can feel the top of the piston. And I can. Where the second hole, I cannot. So I'm up on top of the center. So now I'm going to loosen the distributor and fish it out. Now, if you don't have a handy dandy tool like this one, you can use just a standard open end wrench. I like these. These are actually a distributor wrench. This is snap-on. It's a 9/16. I have several of these of different sizes. They make getting in here a whole lot easier. So, of course, I'm going to hit the hood. We're going to get this loosened up, and here's our hold down that came off of it. Now let's see if this thing will should just lift out. Have to kind of fish them out. And I just unplugged it, which I should have unplugged it first. Let me clean a little bit of the oil off of it here. Alright, so that part's out. I'm going to try to find the plug that I just unplugged this from so I can kind of hang it up so I don't have to search for it the next time, and I'll be back. Okay, the final step in this fun process is to take out all the bolts that hold the intake on. And I've got my handy 3/8 cordless ratchet. This particular intake, it's a fancy one, it's polished, and they have a nice chrome, they're 12-point bolt head, and so to do that you have to take them off. You take a 12-point socket, and let me see if I can start taking these things off here. Okay, and I just discovered that there's an oil cylinder back here at the back that I need to at least get turned to where I can access this far back intake bolt here. So let me grab a wrench and try to get this thing turned. It's not in the intake, so it isn't going to impair us from pulling it off. So give me a second, I'll get that turned. There we go. Okay. Okay, all the easy bolts are out. Now I'm going to take the extension off and keep on trying to pull the other ones out here. Okay, well, all the bolts are out. Now comes the moment of truth to try to pop off the intake. Hopefully it isn't stuck on too tight. Sometimes this will fight you, sometimes they just come off easy. So I guess we're going to find out, and we'll see what happens. Okay, just a slight pry, but it popped off. Let's see if I can go ahead and pick it up here. There it goes. There it goes, and off it comes, and here is a intake pulled off. Alright, well, I'm going to have to do some cleaning up here before the other intake comes on. Okay guys, I thought I would show you kind of the finished product here. I have all my surfaces cleaned up. All the paper gasket is all scraped off. The silicone's all cleaned off. So everything is all prepared for installing the replacement intake as soon as it shows up. And at this point, I would just like to say thank you to all of you who've tuned in for this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Hopefully I could teach you something or show you something interesting that you haven't seen previously. This is our first video that I've filmed anyhow, so this is kind of a new experience, so to speak, and hopefully from here on out they will improve. If you enjoy this video, please click like and subscribe, and we will see you the next time. And for now, this is Dice Sales Garage, and we are signing off.